All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call to order this PVUS meeting for February 13th. And we would like to recognize that this meeting is being held on the traditional and unceded territories of the Lillooet Nation. Any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, move is presented. Director Mack, seconded by Director Kennett. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have no opposed, so we will go right to our delegations and get right into it. First up, we have Emma Gillis from the library to present this year's budget and thoughts. Good afternoon, Emma.
Good afternoon. Nice to see you all again. So good afternoon, and thank you to everyone for inviting me here today to discuss the 2025 budget for the library. I think most of you know me, but for those of you who don't, my name is Emma Gillis, and I'm the library director at the Pemberton District Public Library. Next slide, please. So I'd like to start today's presentation with a summary of some of the successes and struggles the library's experienced in 2024, followed by an overview of key points from the 2025 budget submission. So 2024 marked the midpoint of our 3-year strategic plan. As can be seen on the slide, we have 4 strategic areas that we've been focusing on: inspire minds through learning and literacy, create welcoming spaces, build community and connections, and live our values. Next slide. The library continues to provide a vital hub for our community, with over 56,403 visits recorded in 2024. I say over, as our door counter does not actually record anyone over the height of 4 feet. So we're missing all of our young visitors. This is actually a 3% increase on last year and translates to approximately 22.2 visits per hour, or according to Google, an average visit of 2 hours per person. We welcomed 449 new resident library card holders and registered 126 library cards from other BC libraries. Often a little known fact, a provincial program called BC One Card enables anyone with a valid BC library card to access and borrow material from any participating library in BC. Next slide. In addition to the importance of our physical space, the library collection remains a vital component of the service we offer to the community. A total of 71,460 items were borrowed from the library in 2024. 57,057 items were physical items borrowed physically from the library. This equates to about 22.5 books checked out every hour, or if every resident in Pemberton and Area C borrowed 8.3 books each. This would equate to an annual saving over $250 per resident if they were to purchase these items themselves. 20% of our total circulation now comes from digital borrowing, which is ebooks, digital audiobooks, and digital magazines. We saw a 10.3% increase in digital borrowing in 2024 and a 58% increase in the number of patrons using the Libby app. While the number of items borrowed is significantly lower than the physical collection at 14,403, this is largely a result of a checkout cap on the Libby app. Decline in DVD borrowing remains the largest factor in the difference between our pre-COVID borrowing levels. And so in response to the declining DVDs, we added an on-demand streaming service called Canopy to our digital offerings. Next slide. We continue to invest in building a collection that reflects the needs and interests of the community and currently house 20,655 items in the collection. 2,329 new items were added last year, and we increased our Library of Things collection to 122 items. We'll continue to grow this collection as space and budget permits. This small collection circulated 1,667 times last year, demonstrating the growing need for access to and desire for these items. Being able to offer access to items such as kitchen equipment, sewing machines, e-readers, and laptops, we are also then able to support barriers to these items, whether it's due to cost or limited space. It also helps us in supporting a circular economy and reducing waste. Next slide. We offered 248 free programs to the community with 2,627 participants. Over 60% of the programming in 2024 was for children, and we increased our after-school programming to twice a week. We continue to rent the studio room upstairs in the community centre to support this additional programming due to the demand already placed on the space in the after-school hours. Our summer reading club was a huge success in 2024 with 205 children participating, a 36% increase from our previous record participation in 2023. The team worked hard to reimagine the programme and create something that would sustain engagement and reading activity throughout the summer. We focused on having participants set daily reading goals and receive weekly rewards from our treasure chest, with a magic show at the end of the summer. We also offered an early years option and a summer reading challenge for teens and adults. Our adult programme offerings were severely hampered by staffing levels and capacity. And so to better support this in 2025, we're in the process of hiring a youth and adult programme coordinator for a one-year term, utilising provincial enhancement grant funds that we received in 2023. Next slide. The library operates under a board of trustees comprised of 9 community members and 2 appointed officials. We're incredibly fortunate to have a very active and engaged board of trustees, and nowhere was this better illustrated than in the Curious Creatures initiative they launched in 2024. Working with drawings entered by children in our summer reading club contest, a committee of board members worked to turn a selection of their drawings into 3D artworks that were then displayed in the library for Halloween and throughout November. The selected original artists then got to take their creations home. The initiative was very well received, and the goal is to build on this for 2025. Next slide. A number of projects were achieved in 2024 using provincial enhancement grant funds, but the most impactful were undoubtedly the addition of our new meeting pod and the converting the entire collection to RFID. Our meeting pod was delivered in June, and in a 6-month period, 111 meetings were held in the space. The pod was our solution to the growing challenge of supporting the rising need for private meeting space, particularly for remote meetings, interviews, and teledoc appointments. Our small open concept footprint did not lend well to supporting this rising demand, whereas now we can offer a meeting space that will not impact on others using the space. Our small team of 6 worked hard in the first quarter of 2024 to prepare our collection for RFID conversion, with over 20,000 items manually tagged and programmed. This has not only improved the speed and accuracy of the self-check process for our patrons, but it's improved our internal workflows and significantly improves the workflows for our resource sharing capabilities with our Sea to Sky Interlibrary Connect program with Whistler and Squamish libraries. This has been a very successful partnership that allows us to share resources between the 3 communities, and we've just trialled increasing to 2 deliveries a week to speed up the process. Next slide. The library also celebrated its 45th birthday in February, and Jen worked with founding librarian Jan Naylor and friends of the library chair Julie Kelly to create an in-house display charting the library's history in the community. The library space continues to also offer space for local artists to display their artwork, and after a slow recovery post-COVID, we were delighted to host 3 different artists this year: Clea Thomas, Ryan Zamt, and Erin Bruns. Next slide. So as we enter the final year of our current strategic plan, the key areas we will be focusing on will be improving accessibility. The library is part of the Accessibility and Inclusion Committee, working towards the requirements of the Accessibility Act. Working with the community centre, we look forward to completing the accessible ramp project on the south entrance of the building. Work is already underway for sound dampening initiatives in the children's library and staff workspace. And depending on the outcomes and available grant funding, we hope to expand this project further into the main library space. We're also participating in an accessibility audit of the physical library space in spring 2025, and this will better inform projects and initiatives of greatest need and impact to the community. Excuse me. Strengthening the team. The library is currently open 7 days a week for a total of 53 hours per week. An informal survey conducted in the summer showed that in comparison with our neighbouring libraries along the Sea to Sky and Sunshine Coast, we offer the 2nd highest operating hours, only exceeded by Whistler with 56 hours per week. And this is with the 2nd lowest ratio of full-time equivalent staffing, which is comparable to Bowen Island at 39 hours per week. While challenging to sustain at times, providing access to space, connectivity, digital literacy support and collections remains a top priority for the library, and never more so in these more challenging economic times. The current challenges of recruitment and retention are by no means unique to the library in our community. After staffing levels reached critical conditions at times last year, a full internal restructure took place, and to ensure consistent levels to maintain core operations is a priority for the next year. We were well positioned to remain open on Sundays during the seasonal closure of the community centre from May to October, but very quickly had to cease operations due to inconsistent staffing level. In response to this, we're focusing on retention through building capacity with professional development and professional certification, along with health and wellness initiatives, while growing the team by offering employment opportunities that offer competitive wages and attract those looking for a career in libraries. Enhancing services and programs. So tied closely to our previous goal, we want to continue to build our capacity and continue to grow the services and programs we offer. A big component of that will be to increase our outreach initiatives. With a service area exceeding 5,600 square kilometres, one of our biggest barriers to service is distance. And it remains a priority for us to take the library out into the communities that can't access our services as freely as those that live in close proximity. As previously mentioned, expanding and diversifying our programming, particularly for teens and adults, will be a focus in the coming year. And we'll be building on existing community partnerships and exploring other opportunities as part of this as well. Finally, reinstating a more formalized program for providing digital literacy support to our community will be a goal of 2025. Whether it's accessing government services, applying for a job, completing an online course, or simply accessing community information on social media, need for staff support with technology continues to rise. Limited staff capacity led to a pause of our popular Book a Librarian program while we moved to more ad hoc support, but there's an ever-growing need to support digital literacy skills in this modern online world, and it remains incumbent upon us to rise to that challenge. In overview of the 2025 budget, as outlined in our budget submission, there is a total operating requisition increase of 10% from 2024. Factored into this was an additional $20,000 in the event that the committee requests an audit of the financial statements for 2024. This was scheduled to be reviewed every 5 years. Should this not be deemed necessary, our requisition can be adjusted accordingly, bringing our requisition increase down to 5.4%. The increase reflects the results of a wages and benefits review that was conducted by the board in 2024 in an effort to remain competitive as an employer. We have hired an additional staff position, but that is being covered by enhancement grant funds. We do recognise the financial constraints and the rising costs everywhere. And as such, we've worked hard to continue to present a budget that is both lean without impacting on service levels. Next slide. And in saying that, I would just like to take this opportunity to thank this committee for its continued support and recognising the vital role that the library plays in the community. We are a vibrant, growing community that can only benefit from a vibrant, growing library that continually evolves to meet the changing needs of its population. And with your continued investment in us, we are passionate about and committed to doing that very thing. Thank you.
Questions or comments from the committee? Director Mack.
Yeah, as you all know, I support what you're doing 100%, and you're doing an amazing job as usual. With that accessibility for the ramp at the front end, do you have the funding in place to complete that project?
We have some funding that will be a conversation, I think, with Christine from the community centre as well for the additional steps. We've been working together to cover the vendors. I'm not entirely sure exact numbers.
And there is a budget.
There is a budget
for that.
Yeah. We received grant funds several years ago that have to actually be spent this year.
Okay.
But there are probably additional areas that we're working on the final details.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Any other comments, questions?
I just want to say, having sit in a couple of your board meetings, you've got a really enthusiastic board and very informed community members, and thank you for the efforts that you're doing. Do you see, is it feasible to get this accessibility done this year? Yes, it's a big focus for us this year. I believe the work at the front is scheduled for the spring. And then we're also having an audit of the space, and we have funds in place for the recommendations that come out of that as well. So one of those is the sound dampening within the children's library and the workspace, just to try and minimize some of the transfer of noise within the facility. We'll also be looking at lighting and other things that come out of that audit. Right. Some things will have to be tweaked, I guess. Yes. Having been at one meeting and huge, sounded like big rocks were coming through the ceiling, but I'm glad that's being addressed anyways.
Yeah.
Thanks for your efforts.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I think your statement about a vital space for the community, you can't overstate that. You guys do an amazing job, and the library is very important to this community. So thank you to you and your team.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have who's presenting. Ariane, I think, is up next for Executive Director, Communications for PBTA. Well, we got a few. Maybe you guys can introduce yourselves. Welcome.
Well, Carl Leach, Director, President of the Edmonton Valley Trail Association.
I'm Kaylee Moran, the Director of Communications for PBTA.
And I'm the Executive Director of PVUS, Ariane.
Ariane has just joined us on the team less than 2 weeks ago, so she is fresh on the job. All right, well, thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to be here, to be able to talk about the impact of the organization and the future that we're hoping to be able to pursue with you. Next slide, please. So this is what we'd like to speak about. We're gonna run through who we are, do a bit of an executive summary, talk about our impact, the opportunity with funding, our budget, and be on our way. Next slide, please. We've learned not to take for granted that people know who we are, what we do. So we are the Pemberton Valley Trails Association. We are a registered charity in the community and are unique when it comes to sort of trail management in that we work in the interest of all user groups, including mountain bikers, trail runners, hikers, cross-country skiers, dirt bikers, equestrians, and more. And what that looks like in the day-to-day is that we're responsible for maintaining more than 160 kilometers of 154 trails in the Pemberton network and are leading the implementation of the Pemberton Trails Master Plan. And so that's guides a lot of our work. And by virtue of that, we work closely with a whole bunch of people, importantly, Lillooet Nation, PORCA, SLRD, VOP, PVHA, PDBA, and many more. Those are just some of the top line. And do a lot of community engagement. If you've been to our pancake breakfast in the spring, it may be familiar, but just engaging with the community on the trails and deepening engagement there as well. Next slide. So why we're here today, we've requested a funding increase of $9,000, primarily for the Executive Director and Trail Maintenance labor costs to help increase the sustainability of the PBTA and the stewardship of the trails. And we're going to go through some of the key reasons for that. Next slide.
Okay, some of the work that we did in 2024, 803 paid trail hours by our trail crew led by our trail master Darren and 2 assistants. Of that work done, 73 trails were maintained. We also were granted a Section 57 by the government, Excited Trails BC, in collaboration with the Lillooet Nation and also working closely with the SLRD on that one. In total, 347 hours were spent on trail maintenance. And importantly, since 2023 and now to 2024, we've been consistently been able to hold consistent, reliable trail days. And last year we did 10 of those. Next slide, please. So our impact in last year, we had over 80 hours of collaboration with other partners. That's hours of work done by volunteers outside of board meetings. A large part of our work over the last 2 years has been with wayfinding and improving signage within the Valley network to also help folks with finding their way and trail etiquette as well with all the different user groups that Kaylee mentioned to help avoid conflict on trails there. As you can see from the pie chart, the majority of our work is focused on mountain bike trails, but we were happy and pleased to announce that we have been able to increase the hours of work spent with work on equestrian trails. And into 2025, we hope to Also diversify that pie chart and help more with the motorbike and motor community. Next slide, please. A large part of our work is not just on the trails, but what surrounds them. We worked collaboratively with a number of partners last year and the year before, especially with Pemberton Wildlife Association, with risk to endangered species, the Sharp-tailed Snake Project, for example. Also, close collaboration with the Lillooet Nation on working on their unceded lands and working on an education piece for the community with soft education. Did you know? As you can see in the bottom sign there, there's various signs in the community focusing on education pieces for the community of whose land are they recreating on. Also in collaboration with Porker, the Cycling Association and Lillooet, we brought awareness into the community with hunting in particular, again, to help mitigate conflict in the fall. Next slide, please.
As you are all well aware, the town has grown and so has the demand for use on the trails. We see that, you can see the bottom right chart there. That's trail use that's indicated through the trail fork. So it does not capture all trail use, but it is a symbol of it. It has continued to grow. There's been, especially through the pandemic, there was quite a spike because people were sticking around home and getting active. But it has sort of sustained that level ever since. 41% of trail users are actually from out of town, again, according to this data. So it's not capturing everybody, but it is just a sense of what's going on. The engagement with the trails has grown as well. So we've had at least 2 new trail-based sports clubs that have been registered in the last year, including disc golf and the PVHA, the Pemberton Valley Horse Association, and that necessitates our engagement. So we've worked very closely with the PVHA and have had some engagement with the disc golf as of late as well. There's a growing trail running community here. Folks have seen it on and off the trails. There's the new trail race that's come to town. It's happening again this summer. We expect that to continue to increase as well. And the PVTA continues to be guided by the Trails Working Group, which includes representatives from Lillooet Lands and Resources, the RSTBC, which I believe they're merging now with Parks Canada, so that'll be something new, SLRD, VOP, PVTA, the whole gamut of sports clubs. So all that to say, there's a lot of engagement work happening by the PVTA, and as the community continues to grow and as people's interest continues to grow, we only expect that to increase. Next slide. This is about the economic and community impact of the trails. And so some communities and Pemberton in the past, I think through Porca has done some research into the impact of what mountain biking in particular has brought to communities. And so we just we're curious ourselves at what we would sort of anticipate the spend is in Pemberton as of late. And so we looked at Squamish as sort of the closest benchmark to be able to compare ourselves to. And they had grown from approximately 9.9 million to 26 million in economic impact to 2023, versus in 2016, mountain biking in Pemberton was estimated to be 858,000 in visitor spending and over 600,000 in provincial GDP contribution. And so it's hard for us to know exactly, by contrast to Squamish, what that would look like here. But if it was 100% of their growth, you're looking at 2.25 million. If it was 50% of their growth, it would be 1.5. If it was 25%, 1.2 mil. All that to say, it's definitely grown, and the impact is important to consider when we're thinking about investing into the trails. And we should also say that that's just specifically mountain biking. As we said, the PVTA does work with all sorts of user groups. Those user groups are growing significantly, and the economic impact of those user groups are just amplified. So this is just sort of a taste of it. And we are interested in exploring options and funding and partnership opportunities to be able to conduct an economic study here, hopefully in the next year or two. Next slide.
Okay, as Kaylee has mentioned, a large part of our work is not just on the trails, but off them. Part of that is working, building relationships and respectively sustaining the trails. In 2024, as we mentioned, we gained a section 57 for 3 trails in collaboration with Lillooet and the SLRD in the horse community. if you know, the PBTA is guided by the Trails Master Plan, and that is a quarterly meeting held with Lillooet, Red Sites and Trails, Orca, VOP representatives to make sure that we are guided and stay on the right path. Next slide, please.
A big part, as we had said, for the funding increase was around the sustainability of the organization. We have an extremely talented and committed volunteer board of directors. I've been on it for a year. My background is in nonprofit. That's the industry that I work in, and I have been completely blown away by the skilled commitment of this team. But I will say it's definitely heavy weighted. The amount of volunteer work that makes this organization run is impressive, but a bit of a risk for burnout. We have recently had a part-time executive director role initiated in 2021. I think the first full cycle of an ED in place was in 2023. There was someone that was in and then left, and I'm not completely clear on that, but we've had essentially our last ED prior to Ariane joining us was with us for over 2 years, and that was transformational, just the part-time role. She was able to focus predominantly on that financial sustainability piece, starting to diversify our funding sources, had an extremely high grant success rate. I think it was, I don't have it in there, but it was something like 80-something%. And was able to really grow our relationships and our understanding of the funding landscape in the sea to sky for this kind of work. And because of that, we were able to secure funds for our part-time trail maintenance supervisor, Darren, along with 2 part-time trail assistants that go out and work with him. And that has been a huge help to the trails, and we hear every day from folks how much they see it when they're out there. The quality of the trail experience is definitely felt. Our recently resigned ED reported feeling stretched thin on 15 hours, given the complexity of the work. And so while Ariane works a part-time role for another nonprofit on 15 hours and has proven her success in that model, it is something that we're conscious of. And as the need continues to grow, and as the organization, the complexity of our work continues to grow, and that consultation work continues to grow, it's something that we're very mindful of over the next couple of years of needing to be addressed. Next slide. So the impact, just to reiterate, of the PVUS funding, which has really been transformational for us, is to maintain the executive director position at a minimum of 15 hours. And we are looking for alternative sources, and we've had success. I think last year our previous ED was able to add 5 hours a week to her her income through a additional funding source. So continuing looking to that. To make sure that we have that administrative coverage, and really the main focus is that financial sustainability, because we are, it is a small, we're operating on a very small budget, and if one thing goes, it would have significant impact on the trails. Continue to employ our part-time trail maintenance crew. They are the whole reason we're here. They do the incredible work out on the trails, and we want to make sure we can continue to offer that service to the community. And then continue to work with community stakeholders to accomplish shared goals. I think that's the one thing I can at least personally attest to that I've been so impressed by, is just this extremely respectful, collaborative approach that's been happening, at least in the year that I've been here, that nothing gets done that isn't sort of a shared priority, a shared goal approach in a really respectful way, make sure that everyone's sort of on board. And we have a trail highlight as part of this funding, is that the Blood, Sweat, and Fear connector construction is going to get started, which you might want to, Kyle can speak more to that if you'd like.
I will pause that one until we have official announcement. Yes, something's coming. You're pleased to know. Okay, moving on, next slide, please. How can the PBTA further support the VOP and SLRD further in the future? Our skill set lies with work on non-gravel trails, so to help share the load. A proposal from us is that with additional funding, that we'd like to take care of the trails listed there as a first step, and maybe other trails on the boundaries within the Area C of the SLRD. In addition, sorry, just going back one. In addition, we have expertise on the ground with clearing deadfall, brush cutting. If the SLRD or VOP would like help and assistance, then we'd be our doors would be open to call in our trail crew to take that work off your hands. Okay, to the numbers, please, on budget. The reason why we're here today is to present to you and ask for $9,000 increase from $30,000 to $39,000 from the PVUS fund. Looking at our numbers, a large proportion of our budget is spent on wages, and that's for our 3 trail crew and for our executive director. In addition to having staff, as you know, there are operational expenses, and that amounts to $50,000, not just for keeping the lights on, but for IT, insurance, etc. And that amounts to $50,000. In total, our expenses amount to $123,000 projected for 2025. In terms of income, with this increase of $9,000, we'd have $39,000 from the SORD. And from grants, our estimate at the moment is for $42,000 coming in from grants, and then another $42,000 coming in from donations, membership, and hopefully a bike raffle that we'll hold this year. Without the $9,000 contribution from the SLRD, the PVTA budget would be in the red, minus $9,000. Next slide, please. Thank you for your consideration. Thank you for your consideration and your time here today.
Thank you. Questions?
I have a question. Fire safety wasn't mentioned in your presentation, but I guess your brush clearing and all of that comes in. But are you working in conjunction with the fire smart people in the community, with the fire department?
We worked with in collaboration with Borka and the Skelpington Community Forest for the fire thinning project in the 1 mile area, and we helped with a sharing education piece there through social media.
I just have another question about rogue trails. Is there some kind of policing system within the organization for unsanctioned trails that seem to be popping up?
Good question. No, the PVTA are not the trail police here in Pemberton. That's not really within our jurisdiction. I would say that careful and delicate one-on-one conversations are had when rogue trails are found, and we do a very good job with a soft approach in our community if you compare how Pemberton is doing relative to Whistler and Squamish. Part of our work, hopefully for 2025, also hosting at the library, we'll have a meeting in collaboration with Porker on an education piece on sustainable trail maintenance and management, and part of that will be the rogue trail topic. We also go into schools. We went to the school last year, and we hope to do more of that work in 2025 with the right support. Again, educating the youth on the significance of building road trails on the unceded lands of Lillooet.
That's good to hear. Yeah, that's good to hear.
Mike, you good?
No, I'm fine, thanks. Just thank you for everything you do.
First of all, we have an amazing trail system here that we can hold up to the world, and as a user, I totally agree. You can see the level of maintenance on it, considering the amount of traffic we get. It's pretty amazing. So you guys do a great job on maintenance. I'm curious what conversations sound like with the growth of e-mountain bikes, e-dirt bikes, which are providing accessibility to trails at a much higher speed and potential for conflict. I'm wondering how you guys are discussing that and what that sounds like, without the risk of opening a really big conversation, but yeah.
Okay, small point, maybe I can pass on to the board members. We worked with the village last year on a little signage campaign around 1 mile area, as we did hear concerns from community members, especially maybe elderly or those hard of hearing, where those type of activities can come up super quick. So that's mainly like on the dike trails, on that boardwalk trail that surrounds 1 mile lake, and we did put up sort of caution, no e-bike or e-throttle bikes allowed in this area.
Gotcha.
And there has been also same thing, I think some quiet conversations as well as people are out on the trails and engaging folks and building relationships that way. that is I think the general approach of the PBTA is really, it's an engagement and an education and a relationship perspective. And all of this sort of multi-use type of work.
Yeah, so that's why that trail etiquette piece comes in.
Cause it's a tough one. I mean, there used to be a fairly clear separation between what was a dirt bike, and what was a mountain bike or a commuter, and now it's, you
It's
know,
more.
it's blurred now, and I've been in some near misses and seen some near accidents as well, and it's just being out on the trails when I haven't been. Thanks for that, and at the risk of sounding petty, when we discussed the $30,000 budget of 39, just for clarity, that's SLRD BOP shared. Just, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for your presentation, you guys, much appreciated.
Thank you.
Next up, 5.3, we are the museum. We have Charmaine and Brenda joining us. Afternoon.
Please, thank you. Just need that. Thank you.
Hot seat again.
So I'm Charmaine Carpenter, and I'm the executive director and curator at the Pemberton Museum, and this is the lovely Brenda McLeod, and she's the president of our board of directors. Thanks, first of all, for this opportunity to share what we're doing, our growth and our challenges. It's always really enlightening to prepare this and sort of look back in our year, and it's exciting to see how we're doing. So. The Pemberton Museum had an amazing 2024 season. You can go to the next slide. There we go. Okay. The Pemberton Museum had an amazing 2024 season filled with exciting events, enriching programs, and meaningful collaborations. We can't wait to share the highlights of our achievements, the impacts we've made in the community, and our vision for the future as we continue to preserve and celebrate our region's history. Next slide, please. The museum was open Tuesday to Saturday from June 3rd until our haunted Halloween hoedown on October 27th. In 2024, we welcomed 5,864 guests, and that's a 43% increase from the year before. And it brings us back to just under our pre-COVID average. We also had a 16% increase in membership. We had 16 school groups, 3 daycare groups, and a summer camp coming through this space, bringing 292 young people to the museum. We hired 7 local youth. We hosted our first wedding. We had a celebration of life for a beloved Pemberton local. We hosted a staff appreciation party and a collection of board meetings and workshops for local businesses and nonprofits. We hosted 7 Toonie Teas, 1 date night outdoor concert, 2 art exhibitions, and the Women's Institute's annual Blueberry Tea fundraiser. We also had a wide variety of wellness, health and wellness workshops, classes, and trainings. We welcomed both the autumn equinox and winter solstice and looked forward to celebrating the changing seasons with our community moving forward. We continue to explore partnerships and projects with other community groups, including the Pemberton Arts Council, the Foundry, local schools, the Pemberton Fire Smart Team, and the Village of Pemberton. We've also continued to do outreach with Indigenous teachers and leaders. Each spring and fall, XCS students visit the museum, and returning teachers have shown interest in collaborating to enhance our tours and activities. Their input has already made a positive impact, enriching the experiences we offer all of our guests. Discussions with Lillooet language and culture leaders are in early stages, but we hope to further deepen our relationship with Lillooet Nation to ensure our work is respectful, inclusive, and culturally authentic. We aim to share stories in a way that honors Indigenous perspectives. Next slide, please.
Visitors from around the world. We are always amazed at how far many of our guests have traveled to visit Pemberton and our little museum. Being close to Whistler brings a diverse mix of visitors from around the world. We are constantly told how special the stories, artifacts, and history we share is. Our guest book is a delight to read at the end of each day. I think some of the highlights this year were people from Russia who came from Vancouver to Pemberton to see the museum. So, I mean, I think Whistler was just passing through and that was really exciting, but it's been really amazing to see how many people from around the world are coming through. Next slide, please. Our hardworking and incredibly supportive board of directors continues to guide and strengthen our mission. There's always room for more directors, and we encourage community members to contact us if interested in volunteering. Each spring, we search for a team of staff who can help us bring the museum to life. We are fortunate to have a few dedicated team members return each season, sharing their valuable experience with new staff, ensuring a warm, welcoming, and knowledgeable environment for all. We are always looking for new team members, and if anyone in your community is interested in part-time or full-time employment, please consider sharing this opportunity with them. We love to welcome passionate individuals to our team. Next slide, please. Our community. The museum is first and foremost a community space, and we're so grateful for the support and enthusiasm that keeps our history alive and thriving. We continue to create events that engage and entertain kids from 1 to 100, making Pemberton history fun, interactive, and memorable. Next slide, please. In 2024, we hosted our very first season kickoff fundraiser on June 15th. Child whisperer Ira Petal led a lively kids dance party, bringing energy and excitement to the event, which was a smashing success until the rain arrived. We managed to welcome 147 guests to the site in 3 hours and raised almost $600 for events and programming fund. The Ghost Town Hoedown was a thrilling finale to our season, drawing 545 guests into the world of spooky Halloween fun. The saloon was bustling with music and dancing, the jail was full, and the schoolhouse was full of crafting chaos. A fantastic end to a lively and unforgettable season. Next slide, please. Toonie Tea Tuesdays made a triumphant return with 7 events, welcoming 256 guests to enjoy live music, fire smart information, and a chance to catch up on local gossip in a warm and friendly setting. We are incredibly grateful to our board of directors for their generosity each week, baking homemade treats and making everyone feel welcome. Next slide, please. Date night made a much anticipated return, featuring performances by local songbirds Sherry Marie Talomi and Winona Nelson, and included an incredible art exhibition of Winona's work. Their music echoed through the neighborhood as the sun dipped behind the mountains, bringing together friends and family for a joyous and memorable evening. We had about, I think there was 75 guests to that event this year, which was really exciting. It was about a 25% increase from the year before. Next slide, please. Last year's dry winter raised concerns for the 2024 fire season. Working with Pemberton's Fire Smart team, the site was assessed for fire risks and a plan developed to protect the museum site, buildings, and archives. Work included vegetation management, infrastructure upgrades like rooftop sprinklers, gravel perimeters around each of the buildings, and an irrigation system in partnership with the Village of Pemberton, as well as an updated emergency plan. With help from Pemberton secondary students, we cleared 3 trailers of debris and old building materials, reducing potential fire hazards and improving site safety. A huge thank you to the Whistler Blackcomb Foundation and the Village of Pemberton for the generous support, the Pemberton Fire Smart team for their expertise and dedication, and Pemberton secondary students for all their hard work. It's pretty amazing. They did in about 2 hours the work that would probably have taken me and my team the whole season. So they did, it was a two-part program with Fire Smart. They came for the first day, they assessed the site, based on the things that they learned from the Fire Smart team. And then they came back the following week and they did a giant cleanup and it was really spectacular. Transformed the site. So. Next slide, please. In 2024, the museum hosted 16 events for outside groups, raising over $5,000 for site maintenance and improvements. So far in 2025, we've already got 15 bookings on the books in the schoolhouse with new inquiries coming in weekly. We're excited to continue offering much needed community space while strengthening our revenue to support the museum's growth and sustainability. We continue to source and apply for grants to support our hiring efforts, develop our events and programs, fund building and site improvements, and projects to enhance visitor experiences. In 2024, with the support of a Community Services Recovery Fund grant received in 2023, the museum was able to update and modernize our HR policies and manuals for staff and management. Next slide, please. We are excited to announce that our new website will be launched at the end of February, offering improved accessibility and functionality for visitors exploring our digital resources. This upgrade is a key step in enhancing our online presence and making our archives more accessible to the community. Stay tuned for the big reveal. We'll let everybody know when it's happening. Development of an interpretive plan has been ongoing for the last few years. We have written a number of grants to support that work and are still hoping to get additional funding for it. An interpretive plan is a roadmap for the museum's narrative, exhibit development, and improvements. Still in its early stages, the plan will ensure our exhibit and narratives are inclusive, accurate, and engaging for all the communities we represent. We will consult with residents, assessing our storytelling in collaboration with Indigenous partners, including Lillooet Cultural Heritage and Language Authority. The John Arn Cabin agricultural exhibit. Plans are underway for the development of an agricultural exhibit in the John Arn Cabin that was built on site in 2021. Research and development will continue through the off-season with the goal of unveiling the new exhibit by fall. Washroom renovation. With year-round venue rentals increasing, the need for accessible, heated washrooms has become essential. Engineering planning is underway with budgeting, approvals, and permits from the Village of Pemberton as the next steps. We aim to secure funding through grants and fundraising to complete the project by the end of 2025. Staff retention. With the support of matching funds, we commit to offering between 5 and 8 seasonal positions for local students and young adults aged between 15 and 30. These opportunities provide skill development and valuable experience preparing our young people for their future endeavors. Next slide, please. Thank you for this opportunity to share our work and future plans. The staff and board of directors are honored by the responsibility entrusted to us. We invite our community and visitors from around the globe to explore Pemberton's vibrant history and embark on a journey of discovery with us. We would like to extend our personal invitation to each of the members of the committee to tour the museum in 2025 to see firsthand how the museum has grown and evolved over the last 5 years. Thanks for your time. Let us know if you have any questions.
Questions?
Yeah, I guess you guys, that is an amazing place. But so the washroom upgrades, you have a budget in place for that?
We have money set aside. We have originally the plan was to just do almost like a cosmetic upgrade, just upgrading the equipment, as we would say. There's some urinals that are in the men's room that we would like to remove. But now that we're doing now that we have year-round events, it's important that we have first of all, a washroom that's accessible, which we don't have right now because our new schoolhouse does have an accessibility ramp. So people can come to the site, but then washrooms are a challenge. So we're trying to have those two things match. There's a grant that we can get for that we got for the ramp for the schoolhouse. So we'll write the same grant for that. And we do have about $15,000 set aside for bathroom renovation. Because we're going to be winterizing the bathroom, it seems like we're gonna have to do a new foundation. So right now we've got an engineer coming next week. It's like we're really doing first steps. our construction company, so McLeod Construction, thinks that we could potentially have it done by the end of the year, but I mean, there's so many things that could come up in that process.
Are you hooked into the village sewer system now?
Yes.
Just a question. Okay. For accessibility to the other buildings, is there, are you having issues with that or?
I wouldn't say we have
Not
issues.
but
with
you
it.
need more.
I mean, it's very complicated to take a 126-year-old building and make it accessible. So what we're trying to do is build accessibility into the buildings that were built in the 80s and 90s, so that most of the site is accessible, but actually getting into the historical buildings is always going to be a challenge. It's real, like, we're not even sure how we would build accessibility into it. And the frailty of the buildings themselves, even, I mean, we've been doing some structural upgrades. One of the cabins was, the roof was sagging, and we just had a whole new internal roof system put into that building. The whole building's been shifting since we did that, so now the doors don't close properly. So we just have to always be very careful about finding the balance between accessibility and also preserving.
It is a focus of the board as well,
Sure.
and was discussed at our meeting yesterday.
That's cool, like the
Yeah.
outside is wonderfully accessible, I think, it's big improvement with the new like gravel trail. And
Well, and there's actually a cement trail as well that, so it's paved, so you can get through in a wheelchair as opposed to going over the gravel. But then it does stop at that point, like how do we make it more accessible as far as washrooms and things go?
It's a work in progress always.
has there been folks that are challenged?
I think that we've never had anybody have any negative comments about it. I mean, obviously, it's wonderful if everything could be accessible, but we've also had people that the people that they've come with have been able to support them into getting into the buildings. But as our population ages and it is a community space, we want to make sure that it is as accessible as possible, so that the outside groups that are renting the site for whatever purpose, they have accessibility as well.
Thank you. You have it's just great. You guys are doing a good job, and it's a wonderful facility for this community.
Thank you.
Oh, I have one more questions. With the closing of the Chamber of Commerce, with the booth, the tourism booth, have you concerns about people finding you in our community this next year?
I think we're going to have to focus on digital marketing a whole lot more. I mean, we always have. And last year I was fortunate to find staff that were actually very digitally inclined as I used to be quite computer savvy, and I'm like, oh, I don't actually know how to use my own phone anymore. So, but we have been able to bring in young people that are able to do that work for us. I have been in touch with the chamber, and also with a couple of the organization or the marketing companies that usually advertise there. So they've dropped off they want us to be almost a point of access for other places as well. So because we're at the front of the beginning of the meadows, you're able to come to the museum and get like maps and pamphlets and things like that. So that's something that we're working on. We hope it doesn't negatively impact us.
Well, I think there's big plans for the future, but
Yeah, exactly.
so well, thank you for that. Picking up the slack is great.
Good for us.
Thanks to both of you for being here. It really is quite amazing how far the museum's come in the last 5-10 years. So
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks.
The last delegation is David McKenzie from Pemberton Search and Rescue.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to present on behalf of Pemberton District Search and Rescue. I'm David McKenzie. I'm the current president and one of our search and rescue managers. Pemberton STAR is a 100% volunteer-run organization dedicated to providing search and rescue services in our region. Our members work tirelessly, responding to emergencies, training regularly, and maintaining the essential equipment and infrastructure required for effective operations. We greatly appreciate the continued support of the Pemberton Valley Utility and Services Committee, which helps us sustain and enhance our capacity to serve the community. An overview of our organization, we currently have 42 dedicated volunteers. Our call-outs, we respond 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, assisting with rescues in remote and hazardous environments. All of our members are professionally certified. We have got extensive certifications, everything from swiftwater, rope rescue, other type of high angle helicopter operations, etc. Our operational support goes beyond rescues. Our members contribute to our base operations and maintenance, equipment and vehicle upkeep. We conduct a lot of fundraising and community engagement, and we have a great number of specialized committees within our own organization. Our key operations and tasks. Currently, the rescue trends that we're seeing right now, our call volume has slightly decreased from 2023 into 2024. We think this is again the same thing that we saw in 2023, largely due to the severe forest fire season, which reduced backcountry activity, and the low snowpack that we had leading to fewer winter activities. The type of rescues that we conduct, so about 75% of our incidents involve injured individuals, and we're seeing an increase in the type of trauma. And so we've started to focus a little bit more of our training and equipment based on trauma scenarios. We've also had an increase in technical rescues due to the unprepared backcountry users. And we're also starting to see a bit of an increase in our mutual aid assistance calls from our neighboring SAR agencies. We respond quite regularly with Squamish, Whistler, and most recently we did into Agassiz. Specialized rescues, our team maintains both mountain, water, urban searches, and vehicle extrication. And as well, we maintain our certifications in our helicopter external transport system. We're still challenged with our helicopter activity because we are dependent on Whistler's equipment and personnel due to the provincial moratorium on new SAR capabilities. This remains a major operational limitation for us. Our current funding sources, our SLRD requisition through this committee provides our operational funding. We have other provincial reimbursements through EMCR, through all of our task reimbursements. We've been successful in securing some government grants that are specific to some of our capital projects and equipment. And we do receive some fundraising and donations through people and their families that we have brought out of the backcountry. Our 2024 funding expenditures, some of the highlights were some new equipment. Our equipment obviously has a shelf life, everything from our rope rescue gear, swiftwater gear, specialized first aid and trauma equipment. So we always have to make sure that it's being maintained and is current and not expiring. We replaced one of our vehicles last year. We have a new 4x4 crew truck that provides our initial response vehicle. We did some infrastructure improvements around our base. We've expanded our parking lot improvements, took down a lot of hazardous trees that were starting to blow down every time a windstorm came through. And so we're able to actually increase our footprint for parking and our footprint for helicopter landings. Done a lot of training enhancements as well. We've expanded our mountain rescue and helicopter training and rope rescue capabilities. We were able to actually, we had small numbers of our team, and we were able to actually increase the numbers of all of our team capabilities. So where we had 3 or 4 that were specializing in certain things, we now have between 8 and 12 on all of our specialty teams. As we go into 2025, we are to continue delivering essential search and rescue services. We're hoping you can consider increasing our requisition as many of our operational costs continue to increase. Everything from fuel, equipment, and insurance has significantly increased in cost over the last few years. Some of the expenditures that we have planned going into the new year, we're continuing our base and vehicle maintenance operations. Continue with our advanced training programs. We always have to be recertifying all of our teams. And as we brought new members in, we have to bring up the complement of certifications. Our essential equipment, we're again always continuing to provide our personal protective equipment for our members, communication equipment, and rope rescue as essential tools. Our goals for 2025 is to continue maintaining our operational readiness for all types of rescue missions, increasing our technical rescue capabilities through the advanced training and new certifications, strengthening our regional partnerships to enhance interagency coordination, and improving our fundraising efforts so that our organization can support our long-term sustainability. And we'll be advocating for our HETS expansion to allow for independent response capabilities. Pemberton District Search and Rescue remains a critical emergency response organization serving the region. Your continued support is essential in ensuring that we can maintain our high standard of service, keep our volunteers safe and equipped, and respond effectively to the increased demands in our region. We appreciate your time and consideration in our funding request, and we look forward to your support in 2025. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Questions? Dr. Mack?
Yeah, just thank you for that, David. Obviously, you guys do an amazing job, and it's a necessary, sort of a necessary evil. We have to have you guys, so I fully support what you're doing, so.
Thank you, yes.
And thank all your folks, because the time and effort that everybody puts in is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, and it is one of those things where we are an organization where we kind of hope we're not responding.
Right.
And, you know, our team, we brought a lot of new members in a couple of years ago, and they're now all full-fledged members, fully trained and certified. And, you know, a few of them kind of get a little antsy and disappointed because we went back in, 2021, 2022, we had, we were up to 80 calls, and now we're about 45 last year. The trend we've already seen has started out of the gate this year. There does seem to be a lot more backcountry winter activity. We've already had some significant calls in January, and had one on Monday. So it's certainly trending a little faster pace going into 2025. But thank you for that.
Right.
We hope we're just sitting around, cutting the grass at the base, but that's not
Yeah.
the case.
Oh, thank you, David. It's important work. I mean, there's even television shows, with the North Shore group. Maybe they'll come out and be, filming you guys one day with a very minor,
Yeah. We hope so. It gives us good exposure for those
Yeah,
donations.
yeah.
You mentioned you have 42 volunteer members. Is that sort of the sweet spot for what you need to carry on operations? And do you struggle getting volunteer members?
No, we're not struggling. This is probably the best retention we've had in many, many years. Going back, 5 years ago, as people start to have families, they're bringing up children, they not necessarily lose interest, but there's a greater focus on family. Our team right now, we're very fortunate that a lot of our members, do work in Whistler, but professionally, they also work for the mountain. So, we have a very high level of skill and a very high level of availability, which is great. And so when we look at our, the type of calls that we get, where we're going, our response capacity is always, what we're trying to improve upon. And so having that complement right now, we don't see the need going into this year to be able to do a call out for an intake for new members. Through our website, we continually get applications that we take, and we kind of, talk to them, let them know we're not doing an intake. We'll keep their information on file. We do have a program now because we're part of the BC Search and Rescue Association. We've had some people that have moved to the community that were members of other search and rescue groups, which is great because now they're coming to us with their capabilities already in hand and able to, quite often we're able to fast track those in because our sole requirement is all of our members have to have a GSAR course, the basic component, which is actually a very long course. But someone coming in from another search and rescue group that's going to move to our community already has it. So we're able to actually bring them on board. So we've had a couple of those as well that helps keep the complement up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, PSAR is very well respected amongst the search and rescue community within BC, and so thanks to all the members.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for all the presentations. We're on to 6. which is a consent agenda. Would anybody like to point anything out or move as presented?
Move is presented.
Second by Dr. Bennett, any opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
We're at 8.1, SLRD CAO verbal report. CEO Paul.
Thank you so much.
Well, the Barron CEO report, CEO Casey.
Thank you to the committee. I have nothing today.
So that takes us to 8.3, which is direction of request with regards to Pemberton District Initiative Fund one-time funding requests.
What timing?
Yeah, perfect timing. All new.
Veronica Reed, Project and Program Coordinator with the SLRD. Here today with two one-time funding requests for the Pemberton and District Initiative Fund. Both are under $5,000, so based on the policy, they don't need a presentation today. Both requests are in the arts, culture, and recreation stream, and there's a remaining unallocated funding balance of $65,677. So it'll still leave room for more one-time requests. So the first one is the Pemberton Volleyball Club, and they're looking for $4,984 to cover the U14 girls volleyball program. They're gonna rent a room at the community center, pay volleyball BC costs, insurance, uniforms, and equipment. The second request is the Pemberton Valley Horse Association. They're looking for up to $4,534.39 to cover a emergency response clinic. They've noted if the funding's limited, $3,000 would assist with the clinician.
Thank you. Any thoughts? Mac?
So the volleyball request, I would certainly support that. Because we do have the money to do that. And I think it's a really good community function, and so we do that one at a time.
Yeah, so would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I would.
Second, any further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, then we go to the second one. Okay, so this is still on the volleyball court. Hang on, let me
So, horse,
move this.
Pemberton Valley.
Anyways, the second one, I would most certainly support that initiative too. Yeah, go back to my agenda here and start over again. So this second one here, the Pemberton Valley Horse Association, funding to cover trailering safety and technical large animal emergency response clinic, one-time funding. I would most certainly support this as well, because I think this is extremely important to have in place. You know, with our fire situations and all that stuff. I know my wife was involved with this animal rescue stuff back in the day when she was involved. But anyways, and I know Jan's husband, we've used him in his trailer to move animals around when they've needed to be moved emergency wise, right? So I think this is very critical, especially for our area, with the amount of big animals we have, horses, cattle, whatnot. So I most certainly do support this.
Motion to approve that one-time funding.
Yes.
Second. Any further discussion? Go ahead.
Can I just get clarity on the amount? Within the report, there was 4,984 or 3,000. for the Pemberton Valley Horse Association. So
I'll go with
clarity
the
on that.
4,900 and whatever it is.
Thank you.
Cause, yeah.
Call the question, any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Where are we now? We're on to 8.4, Recreation Services fourth quarter report. Ms. Burns.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. Fourth quarter recreation services. I think you heard me say a few times last year how we were operating as intended and starting to potentially balance out in what we're operating from a services perspective. So from a program perspective, we saw modest increases in use. Everything was what was expected. And I think we're kind of at capacity from a offering programs perspective. The one area that we saw some shifts and alterations in were in facility rentals because the Whistler Gymnastics Club acquired a facility of their own and Jiu-Jitsu service folded. So that has meant an increase in workload administratively for the facilities booking coordinator. However, a bit of a decrease in the amount of space usage. So it's an interesting balancing act at the moment. And we're coming as she goes. And as you just approved, the Pemberton Volleyball Club is a new user of the facility, which is fantastic. We wouldn't have had room to offer programming for them before. So there's lots of opportunity there. And we're starting to see things transition, I think, successfully there. Other than that, it was a fairly staff-heavy quarter in that we had a maternity leave and a full-time employee stepped down to a permanent part-time position. So I spent a fair bit of time fourth quarter recruiting, hiring, and training 2 new full-time staff. So that would be a summation of fourth quarter. Any questions?
Thank you much. Mac.
Yeah, thanks for that. Now, my question is coming from the library presentation.
Yeah.
There is like for this access to the front of the building, to the
Yeah.
library, there is a budget for that.
Yes.
And that project will be completed this year.
Yes, I'm in the final stages with architects and engineers at the moment in acquiring our permit. We, between the library grants, as well as we received in third quarter last year, $100,000 from the RBC community grant program for accessibility. So we, and then there is some budget set aside in the recreation budget as well to support that project completion. So we're on track for spring construction.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any questions?
For the children's playscape park, is that going to be coordinated in with the building of the front at all, or is it 2 separate projects, or can it be amalgamated to make it, you know, sort of?
It's 2 separate projects. I'm currently in the process of writing grant requests to see how much money we can get to complete that project. I think there is some hardscaping required to complete the building process of the daycare. And we're hopeful that through the accessibility project and the need to remove brick that will, and the work that we did in the fall as well, we've readied it for a brick. So we're hoping to just take some of the brick from the front of the building and put it at the back of the building to complete the hardscaping requirements there. So we'll clean that up a little bit. And then as far as the playscape installation, that's a separate project. So, and we're working on grants to support its installation.
And I guess what would the timeline for finishing that project be?
That leads us into just like budget conversations, and I do believe that that capital project has been put towards 2026. So, and right now, currently, 2025 is going to be about trying to secure funding from grants and other resources.
Okay,
Awesome.
well, thank you. You're busy.
Stay in
Busy
trouble.
place. Yeah.
Lots of job security, lots of job security.
Yeah.
Did I get a motion to receive the recreation report, Director Max, second by Director Kennett? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for that. Don't go anywhere. We're on to the recreation draft budget 5-year plan.
Thank you very much for having me today. Appreciate that we covered the capital segment already. That makes it super shorter. I did want to highlight today that all the figures that you'll notice in the 2024 actuals are preliminary and unaudited. We are on a different budget cycle as a municipality in the regional district, and that definitely complicates, but appreciate the work with Mr. France to coordinate this stuff as well. What I've presented in the package is a number of assumptions that align with council's input at the council table. We have our upcoming budget session on February 25th and again March 4th with a public open house. But for the 5 service areas of the community center, the Meadows Fields, the Youth Center, Gates Lake, and Denduff Park, what we've presented here is the direction and support of council, as well as some of the board direction here. Largely to summarize, I would say that the service that's provided here reflects restoration of service hours to basically that pre-pandemic level. We've included the request to have Sunday service included throughout the year, so that's part of the variance that you'll note in the labor costs, particularly at the community center, the 60001 segment of the budget here. There is additionally asset additions out at Denduff Park. That reflects the second largest variance, which is servicing the dirt jump tracks, the startup and close down of that service annually, as well as the amenity building now being online. So we've done our best estimates to reflect the costs of everything from hydro to internet and security and so forth in the budget there as well. In the 5-year and forward-looking plan, we've tried to maintain inflationary levels at 3% as the kind of guideline. That's all subject to revision. However, there are a few incremental assumptions that we made based on labor planning and any other known areas of attention. And I've kind of highlighted everything along the notes column as well that I hope were helpful to everyone. I might highlight, just because I did hear some questions, programming for Canada Day and some of the events for June and September are prioritized this year as well in the budget.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Questions from the committee?
I just have
Okay.
sorry,
Go ahead.
Les. I just have a question about the old soccer field out where the school buses are parked. What? The name escapes me now what we're calling it, but is it a lot of usage there?
So the Meadows.
Yeah, the
field,
Meadows, yeah.
So a lot, I'm not sure, there is significant use out there. It's utilized by Pemberton Valley Flying Association, the paragliders. So it's their primary landing zone. So we work out an agreement with them on a biannual basis for landing purposes there. It's also highly used in the spring and in the fall when we're prior to opening the Denduff fields, and if we need to close Denduff fields early. It's also used for a variety of things in the summertime as well. It's not overly used, but it is well used. So I think it's a community gathering place for dog owners, and there's people who use it for walking. It's mainly public access out there. Not a lot of exclusive use contracts necessarily.
Can certain organizations just rent it for, say, I don't know, a fair or something like that?
Of course, yes. We do have a couple of potential contracts in the works, sort of. There's been some inquiries from some larger events, and those would be things, and that is a space in which we would be able to host a few of these types of things. So 100%, yes. Yeah, so we have inquiries on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I think right now, one of them is an Xterra, a link to Xterra. And they're utilizing Denduff, but I think they're also considering expanding, and what that would mean would be utilizing the meadows as well for that event and things like that.
Well, it's nice to have all of the facilities and what we have. It's great.
Very fortunate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Recommend, do you have a question?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. So at this point, we're just looking for receipts, I'm assuming. So I'll look for a motion to receipt. Director Max, second by Director Kennett. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you to you too. Thank you. Which takes us to 8.6. Draft PVUS budget, second review.
Slide over it.
Yeah. Great.
Well, I'm Stan Franz, Director of Finance, and this is the second view of the PVUS budgets. The assessment values we went over in January, but I've added the non-market change assessment. Basically, there is quite a bit of non-market change. Basically, the total assessment change using the 2024 revised roll with the December changes to the 2025 completed roll was 74 million. Out of that, 52 million was non-market change, and then 21 million is basically market. And market doesn't necessarily mean increases, it can mean decreases too, so it is kind of just a very, very rough estimate. It's not an exact science. I also added the non-market change, just strictly inventory. Inventory is basically new construction. So area C, you'll see 100% of all the non-market changes inventory. And then BOC about 50%, sorry, 95% of the market changes inventory. 50% of the total inventory is a percentage of the total change for a VOP. So 50% would be non-market, basically, or other non-market changes. Sorry, I just probably confused everybody. Anyway, it's the majority is inventory too, but it's only so we've gone over some of these budgets and we have some changes. The highlighted budgets are being shown for the first time. And I'll just start with the first budget. Sorry, before I start into the budgets, the 2024 forecasted amounts are not final yet, so they're still subject to change. And the full 5-year plans are added for preliminary review as well. So the permanent fire rescue service, this is a shared service with the Village of Pemberton, but the service is provided by the Village of Pemberton.
The service is currently at the maximum requisition available for 2025. So it looks as though we'll have to do a service establishment amendment this year to increase the maximum requisition, which is a 4 to 6 month process. And we would have to review the availability for that process to be completed. Nonetheless, the requisition just increased a small percentage, almost 1.4%. Sorry, 1.9%. And the new requisition is $244,113. Any questions on the Permanent Fire Rescue Service budget? Okay, we'll go to the Pemberton District Search and Rescue budget. They did request an increase. So it is flat to last year. I know they mentioned that they wanted an increase, but they didn't request one. So I don't know if there's a gap somewhere. But it's a 0% increase. It's $35,850.
I'm wondering if we need to clear that up a little bit, because reading the budget, I saw 0% increase, and then I heard him say, I'm hopeful for an increase, so. I wonder if
We'll
we should-
follow up with them and just double check.
But he didn't put a number to it.
No.
Just we want an increase and
Staff follow that up.
They've gotta be- obviously presenting a number.
Rational.
All right, and then we'll go to the permanent refuse grounds, and so this requisition is just a 4% increase or $32,000. The notable changes are highlighted. So second. So recycling revenue was increased. Contracted services expenses were increased. And the time allocation was slightly decreased in 2025 budget. And the contribution to the Darcy Divine Refuse of 6,000 was removed in lieu of the discussion with LCE about the recycling work they have to do, which is still shown as a contingency here, 15,000. Yeah, the GFL servicing costs have increased because their tipping fees have increased when they dump their fees, and then they've just increased their fees as well. Surplus carry forward is just estimated to be $4,000. Which isn't bad, it just means we've spent all of that budget in 2024. The contingency, right, we already went through that. $20,000 is transferred to the capital reserve for future capital needs, and the reserve balance is only $180,909. So we're slowly building that back up. A lot of it was used with the new construction of this site. Yeah, any questions on the permanent refuse budget?
I've got one. Why would we add 20,000 to the reserve capital if the guidelines suggest 160? Like, doesn't that bring, am I reading this wrong, or does that not bring us to 180?
Oh, sorry, you're talking about the operational surplus reserve. We haven't transferred anything to that.
Oh.
Technically, it has to be surplus in order to transfer or some kind of other revenue. But we only had 4,000, so there could be the option to transfer 4,000 to the surplus reserve, but it's not going to make much of a difference.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So the 20,000 was just capital reserve.
Got it. Thank you.
So yeah, the recommendations from the reserve guidelines policy is 2 months of operations, which is estimated to be 160,000, but we only have 20,000 at the moment.
So there's no new information coming on this budget, so are we looking at perhaps approving this budget as is, or should we be waiting for?
I think that we can approve the financial contribution budgets, but because this one still might change with the 2024 financials,
Right.
which would have changed the revenues, we'll wait on this one.
Got it. Thank you.
Um,
New radio.
okay, so TV and radio. not much to mention. It's the same as last time, zero revenues, just all of the reserve is being shown to be any kind of legal issues. Because basically, we don't know what's gonna happen when the society finally dissolves. And then the next budget is the permanent rec center. So this is the first view of the permanent rec center budget for 2025 to 2029. The overall requisition increase for everybody, for all of the parties is 16.8% or $275,000. Just looking at the rec center solely, it's a 10% increase or $142,221. The management funds are as requested by the Village of Pemberton for the service, as well as the capital funds. The 2022 to 2024 capital hasn't been reimbursed yet, so it's been added in to this 2025 budget. Sorry, the 2024 forecast, assuming that we will receive that information to reimburse those funds. I've added the appraisal costs, so we have to have an appraisal done of this building by MIABC's request for property insurance. So $4,700 is the estimate for that, based on a quote that we received. To 2026 assumes the changeover to the financial contribution bylaw that we're currently working on the agreement with. So it's just slightly different. You'll just, instead of all the capital being our fixed assets, I just show it as a capital grant. And the one line for the management remains. And then we also have the debt that still remains. Any questions on just the permanent rec center portion? All right, so the youth center, they have requested 27% increase or $21,623. Management funds are as requested by the Village of Pemberton. And the capital request is for the outdoor space upgrade. And also added in the sorry, I skipped over Permanent Meadows Fields, my apologies. So I'll just finish the youth center first. Yeah, so 2024, I have an estimated amount that was shown to be spent, but hasn't been reimbursed. So there's 3,114 in the fixed asset for youth center that still is to be reimbursed. I'll go back to Meadows Fields. For Pembroke Meadows Fields, it's just two lines, one for the management and one for the utilities water usage. And it's a 3% increase average for that one. Any questions on the youth center or the Meadows Fields service? Right. And then we'll go to the Gates Lake Park service. Requisition is decreased for this service, 39%. Basically because the time allocation that was budgeted was only used by, so $15,000 was budgeted, only $3,609 was used. I just carried forward that remainder to 2025. So there is no net effect for more time allocation, basically. So the surplus available is showing as being used again as time allocation. And then the amount requested from the VOP for management was $11,390. And we have the fixed asset potable water project, which will be updated when it's approved by the board for the increased amount.
Yeah, I guess I'll go past you to Omar. So On that water project, the second outhouse is in and it's working, all that stuff, that's good. The water project, what, do you have like an estimated timeline on that?
Well, we got estimates for the cost now, so that's why it came back to Community Works Fund there.
Yeah,
And once we get that approved from the board, we can start.
so we'll get that approved at this coming board meeting?
Yeah.
And then you can,
We can proceed. I'm not sure on timeline of parts and things like that at this point.
so I guess my question then with that is, so the well that's already drilled there, it doesn't meet, or it didn't meet Vancouver coastal standards because it's like 5 feet not deep enough or something. So did we get around that somehow?
No, that cost includes the treatment plant to sit on it and.
God, that's just. Yeah, whatever. Just a waste, it's a waste of damn money is what it is. Would it not be cheaper to drill another well, go down 100 feet?
I don't think that is the case. I think it's just the Vancouver Coastal Health guidelines that require that for a public space.
Because the wells that are all in that area, they're definitely not treated.
No, those are private residential wells, right? So it's for a public community space that we require.
Yeah, it's. They love to spend money, government money, whatever. Thanks.
Just a question on the well at Gates Lake. Has the water been tested and is it up to the level that it needs to be for the coastal health?
It has been tested previously. I don't know the last time it was, but we've been in discussions with Vancouver Coastal Health on this project, and we know what their requirements are, a treatment.
Even if the water is okay?
Yeah.
Just doesn't seem to make sense, does it?
No, it never does. Bureaucracy, my favorite word.
All right, let's keep it together. Any further questions on Gates Lake?
No.
The Dundalk Park.
Dundalk Park is 128% increase or $118,388. Management funds as requested by the Village of Pemberton. It does include some capital for a new commercial mower for $75,000. And any questions on the Dundalk Park budget? All right. And then the two Pemberton Community Center budgets, PDIF budgets, 2108 and 2109 are the grant funds. So it's the Recreation and Culture Grant Fund and then the Economic Development Grant Fund. These are just flat to last year, no increase in requisition. Did you want to approve these budgets?
Approval of the PDIF budgets. Director Kennedy, second by Director Mack. Any opposed? Motion carries.
The Pemberton Museum budget. It's based on their request and their request is attached as well. And they have a forwarding letter as well. It's just very small, pretty much a 0.something% increase. So we'll just say it's flat to last year. Did we want to approve this budget or are there any questions on this budget?
Approval of the budget, Dr. Kennedy, second by Director Mack. Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. And then we have the Pemberton Library budget. It's, as they mentioned, they did add $20,000 for an audit to be conducted. So I'll just pose that question if we wanted to have the library complete another audit or if we wanted to move that for another year. Right now, their increase is there 9.4% or 43 $1,000, so we can pretty much cut that if we use that $25 audit.
Yeah, I would like to defer that audit. I don't see that, like, obviously you guys keep track of the funding. Everybody keeps track of the funding. Nobody's going to Hawaii or taking nice vacations. So to spend 20 grand on an audit, we did one 4 or 5 years ago now. Everything was fine. Who makes that decision that we have to do an audit, or we do an audit? Is that us?
Well, there is a policy,
Yeah.
2.14, about local service financial contributions. And it does state in there that we have it, we can say yes or no to an audit, but in the policy, it's actually anybody over 40,000.
Yeah.
So it has to be adjusted.
So I'm gonna say we defer.
The audit.
Yep. Save that 20,000.
So approve the budget, the library budget as presented with the removal of the audit costs.
Yes.
Second. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries.
And then the Pemberton Cemetery, we didn't receive a request. We've been trying to receive a request, but haven't been successful. I just placed what they had last year just for reference. But maybe we should hold off in case they need more on this one, so we won't approve this one. But hopefully we get a request for the March meeting. And then the last budget is the Pemberton Valley Trails. This is flat to last year, no increase to requisition. It does include the PVTA's funding, which is 39,000, which is a $9,000 increase over last year. There are some changes to the 2024 financials things that are highlighted yellow. Oh, sorry, within the 2025 budget, actually, that are highlighted yellow. There is a small transfer to surplus reserve of 2,741 and a transfer to the capital reserve of $4,000. And any questions on the Permanent Valley Rec Trail Service budget?
No, I don't think they've requested an increase in some time.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody like to move approval of that budget? Max, by Director Kennett, opposed, motion carries.
This might come back if there's any 2024 changes, but if not, then it won't. And that's anything unless there's any other final questions. Overall, these budgets as presented, which we're going to be adjusting the permanent library budget, but it's a $30.76 increase per 500,000 residential assessment at this point.
That's the increase overall for the library.
For all of the budget.
For all of them.
For all of it.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well done. Thank you.
Mhm.
Good job.
Good. We good to keep moving? We're on 9.1. This is a request for sheriff funding with regards to the pause building. So there's some issues, maybe Theo Chase, you can elaborate on what they are, but there's some issues with regards to building that need to be dealt with. Maybe if there were more details, staff can answer to that. I asked that it be brought here since this is a service that we've shared and benefit from equally from our two communities. So we thought it appropriate to bring to this table. Do you want to just speak quickly to what the
Yeah, I think just to highlight what the major issue is that for some time, there's been mounting issues with the septic there that need to be dealt with. And so, inevitably, in order to keep the facility running, they've raised some money, they've made some additions to the facility, like some additional spaces to house dogs and things like that. But in essence, that facility that they occupy, it is owned by the village and the crown land at the airport. And the septic needs to be fixed, it's old.
I know all about that because when I was the works manager, I convinced council to allow them to use that facility. I mean, that was part of the airport, just a building not being used. But anyways, I fully support whatever you've got in mind because they do a wonderful job, so.
Appreciate that. So I don't know what next steps be to,
I don't know off the top of my head, and sorry, I didn't expect Thomas to go, what the capital investment is for that this year in our budget, so I would actually have to bring that back.
so appreciate the support and principle, and we'll send you what we're looking at.
Hey, so could they put a portable unit in there to get more space?
Oh, you mean a portable building?
Yeah.
They potentially could, but there's barriers because like technically the primary usage of that whole area, according to the Crown Land Agreement that we have, is that it is an airport. So within the construct of that, it would prohibit much further expansion. I think that one of the things they have been thinking of is in the future looking for another more appropriate space for it. But that's as much as
I think we need to advocate for that space and to enhance that space because it's a perfect location. It's not bothering the airport one bit. So yeah, sometimes rules and regulations are just a pain.
Bit of bureaucracy.
Just do it.
Not to prime you there.
Yeah, just do whatever you need to do, I would say.
Does the organization have plans for the building and?
I mean, that's the issue that Director Mack just.
Have they got drawings and all that sort of thing?
Well, right now, what we're talking about for this capital is just the septic.
For the septic system,
septic upgrade.
to upgrade that.
Yeah, to Director Mack's point and pauses identified that eventually they're gonna outgrow that building and it's not exactly new. As CEO Tracy is saying, the primary use of those lands is meant to be aviation. So we have to be delicate and careful in terms of how we increase services other than aviation on that property. Does that mean we absolutely can't do it? Not necessarily, but we have to be pretty.
We've already set precedents out there with the sewer plants on airport property, the search and rescues on airport property, the fire training centers on so-called airport property. There's a house there that's been there forever. So, yeah.
So to answer your question, there are no immediate plans for it.
Yeah.
There is a desire looking forward from the PAWS folks to expand. And
Yeah, well, it's my understanding they're building on or something with what they have now, or?
And it's sort of extraordinary, the amount of pressure that they're under to take animals in. I just read something recently, a small staff report that they've even had animals from Squamish. So, and I know they work closely with WAG as well, but I think they're filling a niche. Yeah, everyone's overwhelmed.
Yes. And they work well, all the different organizations work well with each other to support where the needs are.
Yeah. Obviously, we're in to help the animals, right, whatever, so we support that. But I just feel like maybe with a little bit of a parameter being that if it's kind of a bit on the down low out there with the airport lands and stuff, whether, permanent buildings in the future could be sort of maybe something that could be moved. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe prefab or something like that can be taken down and moved somewhere else or whatever, if need be, due to flooding or whatever, I don't know. But.
Yeah.
Can always figure something out.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal.
But I just think like something that's not too permanent, that can be moved, right? It just is practical, that's all.
Thank you, through the chair. Specific to this request, we did look at what kind of eligible funding and what costs and how this could be funded through the current framework we have, and Area C Select or Area C Amenities Funds do qualify. We did push back to see if Community Works Funds would qualify, and it does not. Just as a
Why not?
overall, because it's the new restrictions. You cannot prioritize third-party projects over projects for the specifically by and for the SLRD, led by the SLRD.
Thank you.
Oh, bureaucracy, once again. God, give me a-
Need a swear jar.
Through the chair, if it would be helpful, I can circle back to the CAO and let her know a little bit more detail about the project and the cost as it's laid out in our capital projects, and then she can communicate that with Director Mack.
Perfect.
Please communicate it to
Okay.
my son there.
We'll get it to you. Do we need any motions on that in there, or are we good with just direction of motion to receive? Director Kenneth, second by Director Mack. Any opposed? Motion carries. Decision on late business. I always forget that I don't have a placeholder for a chair's report in here. So I would like to propose a motion just to add a piece on the sandy dump conversation. So can I get a motion to add that to late business? Director Mack, second by Director Kent. Any opposed? Motion carries. So that'll be 11.2. Late business 11.1 is correspondence from the Diking District regarding the hydrometric gauge partnership. Yeah, sure.
Thank you. This is a request from the Pemberton Valley Diking District, which it will be a collaboration decision between amongst the PVEMC group. At this point, it's just creating letting everyone know that at yesterday's EAD meeting, there was a commitment to fund this in a 3-year term in order to allow PVDD to budget accordingly and not hurry up and wait for funding. So they've requested just a commitment, not the money up front, just a commitment so that they can continue. And at the EAD committee meeting, that was recommended to the board and will be looked at by the board next week, 2 weeks from now.
So why is that here?
That it was an alert here because we work collaboratively through PVDD and the PVEM, so many things, PVEMC. So it was just put in here as a notice that through the collaborative work of this group.
Well, I would say we all support this.
So that's what I was wondering, because we support it already through our budget.
Yeah.
And you have in the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess it's just a heads up.
Yeah, it was more of a just letting them know that this is gonna be committed on a long term. And now we've identified the funding it'll come to, it won't be here anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Motion to receive. Dr. Max, and by Director Kenneth, any opposed, motion carries. And I just wanted to bring up the sandy dump because we've talked about it a lot here, and I think we all recognize the importance of it to the greater community. It's been stated a lot by us, so they're, you know, and again, I'll defer to the CAO, and VOP CAO, to speak to the details a little bit, but there could be some costs coming up with regards to exploring how and where we make this happen. So I wanted to flag it at this table. So let's make sure that we still have support from this table and potential financial support. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, so the village, we've been actively working towards or looking for a solution, and obviously the most feasible and least costly would be to put it somewhere on village lands, as we haven't really had the resources or any sort of offers to put it elsewhere. We really tried pursuing something with one of the local gas stations that already has the infrastructure, and even suggesting that maybe we could help to pay for the maintenance and such, and weren't able to achieve that. So we went ahead and we did a project charter as part of our investigation. We've identified a potential space within the village that could be used that's located conveniently by the infrastructure that we would need to achieve it. And we built it into the budget, but I know that council feels strongly that this is a service that provides for the entire area. It would be beneficial to see if there are other jurisdictions in order to, but in the end, we've had, I feel it's advantageous, given the fact that we know that the chamber was making money with the service, and there's a potential, especially if it's an apparatus that's.
We're gonna have to recess the meeting. We just left the live stream.
Okay.
We talked 30 seconds, it's too long.
Save
So
for quick
close.
recess.
You should have taken a breath.
Like, oh,
Let's see.
You can see it.
Yeah, it was just me, my computer went down from the Zoom, but I can still see the live stream.
Yeah, mine went down.
So,
Can we
live
mute?
streaming?
Let's mute the room.
Yeah, any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, in summary, you know, we have an individual who is interested in this as a potential business venture. And it would be a good complement to the business they already have. And so we're just waiting to hear something back. I think that's where.
So it sounds, so it sounds like there's some new options perhaps brewing. It was one of those, I don't wanna come at the end and just as more of a heads up that there could be some costs and something we're talking about.
Well, the utilizing the one that's at the gas station, to me, that's just out of the question. That place is a gong show to get in there and out of at the best of times. And now you get somebody pulling in there with a 30-foot travel trailer, you know, and a pickup truck trying to unload or a motor home. I mean, it's just, I can just see so that, I would just say, in my mind, that would be right out of the question.
Sounds like it's not an option anymore anyway.
Yeah, good.
But,
Yeah, this is very interesting.
just wanted to gauge your ongoing support on it.
Yeah, right on.
Just
Go
a
ahead.
comment on the Sani dump, I guess location is sort of, you know, in my mind, fairly important and an area and radius and that to pull RVs around and that sort of thing, right? So, yeah.
100%.
I don't know, it was suggested to me, and I'm sure it has been suggested to the village and mayor and council that the new bus loop might be a location, that it's big enough there, and there might be some area that could be sort of.
So a couple things, I mean.
I don't
it
know,
has
it's
been-
too bad we never thought of that before, maybe it was put in.
Yeah, I mean, there's another phase coming on the transit hub.
Okay,
There's a couple issues there. Number one, usage clearance with the hydro lines, whether BC Hydro would even allow that, because we've asked for a specific use for that property. So we don't even know if BC Hydro would allow for it. And number two, a consideration is that transit hub, I'm hoping it's gonna get really, really well used as we introduce regional transit into the system, and there will be an actual bus exchange in there. So kind of similar to your gas station thing, do we want 30-foot travel trailers coming in with buses, a lot more buses than we see now coming in and out? So it has been considered, and I don't think it's completely off the table, but those would be the two issues that would have to be considered. That's sounds like we potentially have a private option, which would be maybe.
yeah, so the private option, does that involve us paying the individual, the business to have that
No.
service or?
No, I think, you know, if anything, because it would be a service, that would benefit everyone, and it's an area of concern for the valley. Of course, we as the village would do as much as we can to support the process. But at the end of the day, it would be a private venture, so. I can clarify, so in this time, I've been able to pull up the budget. The pause project, it looks like we have that at $40,000.
How much is that?
40,000.
Yeah.
And then for the Sani dump, we've allocated 33. So, and I guess I can probably add a little bit more detail as to the location that the village has been looking at. You know, one of the issues besides the BC Hydro conflict with lot 13 is the fact that that space is also to be complemented as a community garden space. And it just seems like having a dump along with the community gardens is a bit of a conflict of use. But we're actually investigating a spot that we have in the industrial park that would be conveniently located as well next to the transfer station, the refuse station.
I think the important thing to think about too is just making sure that it's easily accessible on and off the highway, right? Because that's where people are going up and down the highways. Sadly, we don't have like an RV park or whatever. If we had an RV park, you could put one right at the RV park, right? But I mean, it just seems that, yeah, it's never been a real appetite for that.
I know Shima is an avid RVer and he has he's been to a lot of these apparently, and he did reassure me and in talking to other municipalities and such that it is not unusual for them to be, of course, in an RV park, but also in places like industrial parks.
Yeah,
So it may not be a bad fit.
Well, and then the idea is to be able to hook into the sewer system, right? So you don't have to have holding tanks, you just put it right into the system.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I get a motion to receive point two? Director Max, second by Director Ken, any opposed, the motion carries. Director, motion to adjourn. Director Max, second by Director Ken,